I want to bring in CNN politics reporter Eugene Scott in Washington. Here in New York, senior media correspondent Brian Stelter, host of CNN's Reliable Sources, and Ahmed Shihab Eldin, a journalist and adjunct professor at Columbia University. Thank you, everybody here. I think let's start again, John, with that soundbite from Donald Trump with the affiliate, with the local TV station last night. Let's listen to it again, and then let's have our experts unpack what went on there. Listen.
I was very viciously attacked, as you know, on the stage, and I was surprised to see it. And so all I did, I have great honor and great feeling for his son, Mr. Khan's son. And as far as I'm concerned, he's a hero.
You've talked a lot about border security as a way to prevent terrorists from getting into the United States.
It's a very big subject for me, and border security is very big. And when you have radical Islamic terrorists probably all over the place, we're allowing them to come in by the thousands and thousands, and I think that's what bothered Mr. Khan more than anything else.
Brian Stelter, let's start with you, and then Ahmed, tell me what you guys hear in this soundbite here.
What he says is inaccurate about radical Islamic terrorists being allowed inside the United States by the thousands. There's no evidence that thousands of terrorists are being allowed inside this country. That would be stunning and treasonous if the country was being invaded in that way and the government was allowing it. So he's missing that, and then he's linking it to Mr. Khan by saying that that Mr. Khan doesn't appreciate Trump's policy to try to stop terrorists from coming into the country.
Ahmed?
Right, because that would be the reason that Mr. Khan was upset. It would have nothing to do with the fact that, he wants to ban all Muslims, or that he said, and repeatedly says, that Islam hates us, Islam as a religion. As he said to Anderson Cooper on this very network, what's really troubling is this is a man that's so bigoted, so arrogant, so ignorant, and it's dangerous. Why? Because he's as anti-woman as he is anti-Islam, so much so that he felt he could criticize and ridicule the mother of, a lost hero, an American hero. And I think watching it all unfold in the media kind of madness as it has, what really stands out to me is this idea that he had no problem, putting Patricia Smith, inviting her at the RNC, to have her criticize Hillary Clinton, say she should be in prison, to talk about her son's death. This is another mother who was grieving, her son's death, fighting for this country. And yet, he's on the defensive, despite all the vitriol and all the violence and racist rhetoric that he's been spewing. He's now on the defensive and criticizing Mr. Khan for challenging him for saying all these things. And what troubles me beyond all this is even just that statement that we saw. He tweeted after this, Mr. Khan, was going on TV, and, he kind of poked fun at the fact that he's trying to get publicity out of this. He said, let's get smart. This is about Islamic radical terrorists. Why is he saying that? Why is he spewing all this misinformation about Islam? His entire campaign is about fear. This is a man who stands for nothing but stands against everything. And, it's really disheartening that we're this close to the election, and yet there are so many people who are coming to his side. Unfortunately for him, they're not the Republican establishment. We've seen many Republican leaders criticizing him for good reason.
Eugene Scott, Trump says that he is just responding to the Khans who are, at this point, saturating the airwaves.
And attacking him.
And attacking him. They did go on that convention stage, which is a political forum, and spoke at a Democratic convention. They did go on TV this weekend and then again yesterday all over TV, and they are attacking Donald Trump. Whether it's vicious or not, we'll leave that up for interpretation. But there's no question they're highly critical of Donald Trump. So the question is, how should Donald Trump respond? What is the appropriate way to respond to that? That seems to be the question, and that's where, particularly among Republicans who are dealing with how to handle Donald Trump, they're having some trouble responding.
Yes, as noted before, the Republican establishment is finding quite a few problems with how Donald Trump is responding, but his supporters, his base, seem to think it's appropriate and are taking cues from him. Not only did we see Donald Trump go after Captain Khan's mother, we saw in the clip you previously showed Trump supporters booing another military mom in Nevada.
So as much as we can talk about where John McCain and others are rebuking Trump, that's not where the party is anymore. Right. And I think that's important to keep in mind throughout this.
But I also think it's important to keep in mind that Donald Trump is saying a lot of dumb things. He's saying to his, followers that they need to get smart, and then he's saying all these fallacies. And for as much as he wants people to get smart, at the end of the day, he's at least smart enough to know that the only way he can win is by dividing and conquering, and by putting surrogates such as, Brian, you probably know this guy, Sajid Tarar, who is, the founder of Muslims for Trump.
Yes.
And unless people like Trump and clowns like Sajid Tarar, and I'm not trying to attack him. The reason I say
you're calling him a clown.
I'll tell you why I'm calling him a clown, because I've been on this network with him. He claims to be a Muslim for Trump. And he said to me on this very network that even though not all Muslims are terrorists, all terrorists are Muslim. He says things like, look at Saudi Arabia in his defense of Donald Trump for, ridiculing and pointing out that the reason, assuming that the reason that the mother didn't speak, again, was because she was essentially, banned by her religion to speak, not that she was grieving. I mean, just the insensitivity. The reason I'm pointing this out is he points to Saudi Arabia and says, look at those Muslims in Saudi Arabia, as if Saudi Arabia encompasses or represents all of Islam. For the first time in our country, a country we all love, we have the first possibility that a woman will be elected the leader, the ruler of the United States, right? There are 9 Muslim women leaders of Muslim majority countries. So to paint, Islam with a broad stroke, unless we elevate the level of discourse beyond kind of buying into his fear-mongering and his kind of, race baiting, I'm not so sure that there's a chance that Trump doesn't win this election.
You say fear-mongering. Listen, nothing I hate more than fear-mongering. I think fear is poison. But at the same time, there's understandable reasons why there are vast parts of this country that are fearful of both terrorism and of crime elevating. There's reasons why these emotions are so significant in this campaign.
But Brian, the day after you tell your followers to get smart, and the day after you have this media disaster for his political campaign, I think we can all agree.
What you think is a media disaster, but I mean, it's been going on for 5.
But in this past week, how many Republican leaders are finding it awkward? I mean, even their
awkward
reports,
but none of them have stopped endorsing him, though. None of them have pulled their endorsement.
There are many Republican leaders who are not endorsing him and who haven't been endorsing him.
But Trump makes this point, and let's play the soundbite where he makes this point about how, hey, ratings are really, really high for him. Listen.
Right.
Oh, by the way, and did you see the Nielsen ratings came out? So my final speech against Hillary's final speech, not even a contest, won by 4 or 5 million people. Now, the press doesn't report that.
Okay, we just did. Eugene Scott.
Brian Stelter did a whole article on that.
I was actually kind of excited when Trump posted my Facebook story about his ratings on his Facebook page, but hey.
But Eugene, let me get your thoughts here. Trump says his convention speech beat Hillary's. You have Ahmed talking about, the tone and, which he finds obviously disgusting, but it is clearly resonating. He's got followers and viewers, and his message has an audience.
Very much so. I mean, that was a very interesting comment because, like you just hinted at, the way we know that he did so well, the ratings with his speech is because of the media. But even though that speech got more viewers, what we saw recently is that Hillary Clinton is leading in the polls. Mm-hmm. And so you don't elect presidents based on the viewers of speeches. And what will be interesting will be to see whether or not Donald Trump can take the lead again in the polls. And if he continues to have situations like this one involving the cons, that remains to be seen.
All right, Eugene, Brian, Ahmed, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Spirited for 5:40 something in the morning.
Yeah, how's that with you?